This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, everybody. This meeting of the Blanco Historic Preservation Commission will come to order at 6:03 this evening, October 25th. We'll start with roll call. We'll go with who's present. We have Wendy Cambridge, present. We have Chair Roxanne Sorrell, present. We have Hollis Boatwright, present. We have Billie Jean Kitson, present. We do not have Gail McClellan present tonight, and we do not have Pamela Neighbors. I'm sorry, Cass. And we do have a quorum established because we do have 3 voting members. So welcome, everyone. I don't know if we have anybody signed up to speak.
No one signed up.
All right. We do not have anybody signed up to speak tonight. So we can go on to our first item, which is old business. Paint guidelines update by Wendy Cambridge. Do you have any updates for us?
I do. I did not print this out for everyone to look at, but I believe I sent it out a couple months ago for y'all to review. And not return any information to me about it. My hands slapped on that one. Anyway, Pam and I did meet, and we
We'll go ahead and reflect that. Everyone else is present now.
I guess my first question would be, has everyone been able to look at the guidelines that I printed and
Yeah, I said it all, but I did look at them in person.
excellent. And does anyone have any questions about those guidelines or concerns about those guidelines?
I just have a question. Can we do that? Can we make guidelines for the paint colors?
Yes.
If it's in the ordinance.
And we had discussed it before.
Yes, the reason we met was because we realized we can do this and we should do this, just to give more direction and parameters.
And you're running it with me this through the THC? Or because other cities have done it?
Other cities have
Because
done it.
I heard comments that we can't, so.
I haven't gone all the way to the top, but I did that there's already a little bit of an ordinance written. So we're just updating and upgrading what's already there. And my motion would be to include these current paint guidelines in the Blanco design guidelines that are currently there. And also reference these guidelines in the UDC. Because those two things should be cooperating with each other.
Right.
So that is my recommendation.
I think we can approve them to be added to the design guidelines, but if we're going to have them added to the ordinance, we're gonna recommend them and we're gonna send it to city council. So, so we can do both of those things.
Sounds
If you all would like to do that.
Yes.
So what would our first motion be? Would it be to approve adding them to the design guidelines?
Yes, I believe it would be.
And who, are you making that motion?
Yes, yes. You did so.
This is your allergies.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. There's a lot of books.
Is that right?
Motion is seconded by Pam. All in favor of the approval to add the paint color guide to the design guidelines? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that is unanimous. And so then,
I'll present these to you. This is going forward, but I will send that out again electronically to everyone.
Okay.
so we can forward it to the city council,
Yes.
assuming that you all want to also motion to approve, adding it to the city ordinance, or asking the council to approve it.
I'll make that motion, whatever you said.
It's, okay, well, all right, so we are motioning to send to city council the paint color guidance for adoption into city ordinance for the historic district. All in favor? Oh, wait, no, who?
So we need a second.
I'll second it.
And all in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes.
And before we go too much further, I'd like to thank Rudy for sharing a lot of information over the last few months, bringing up good information. And one of them that we added in here was muted colors.
Okay, good.
What's that? I don't want to vote, take y'all's privileges, but I would recommend it when this is done, maybe make it like a brochure. And if someone says, see what you want to pay, and hand them that.
Yep.
You want to take a look,
Yeah.
hand them a brochure.
Mhm.
Think of
We can
all,
cut out part of the ordinance
Yeah.
and condense it into
because
a
you're
small
always
one
confused.
pager or something, yeah.
And it should maybe even be on our website.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
All right, so we'll need to add that to a brochure for a historic district property owners. Okay. Well, business item number 2 is establish a committee to develop a list of historic locations where plaques can be displayed. And I believe that was your item.
Yes, it was. I don't know if this is a good term or not, but another item I was going to talk about back when was the letter of violation that we revised. Can we put this in here, or do we need to add that into another place on the agenda? That was on previous agendas, but it was addressed.
I recall this because it was introduced in the meetings that we just reviewed. Does it tie to this item?
It's just old business. It does not tie to the committee for historic placards.
Is it just an information item right now? Because I don't think we can vote on anything that's not on the agenda. So if it's an information item, we can add it, but we can't vote on anything, take any action because it's not on the agenda.
Okay, that's fine. And then it'll have to be somewhere else. Because it was done and mailed to everyone, and it needs to be, it's a giant.
I agree. Okay, but it'll have to be on.
Okay, so we'll put it on the agenda for the next
Oh,
meeting.
next meeting.
Right.
Okay, so, I hope you'll bear with me. I'm going to read what I wanted to say, because if I don't read it, I'll forget what I wanted to say. And this all started with a discussion we have had over the many months about putting our own placard on buildings or sites or locations to identify them. So when strangers come into town, they can read and see, and we can put it on our walking or whatever tour. And that's where I started with this. And it's grown a little, so I'm going to read. Over the years, this community has done a great job of recognizing and documenting our history. admit, I don't know all that has been recorded and documented for all to see and learn from. But the final presentation at the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions training that we got earlier this year got me to thinking, is everyone and everything equally documented? Are we representing our more recent history? Our history is layered with stories of people, events, and diverse cultures. It's like a colorful tapestry of people, places, times, events, and industries. What should we recognize that hasn't already been done? And the following is taken from that training I went to, and it gave 5 things. Number 1, districts need to be recognized. Number 2, buildings.
Yes.
Number 3, sites, such as cemeteries, battlefields, forts, tribal grounds, things like that. Number 4, structures, bridges, rock walls, things like that. And the final one was objects, mile markers, trails, streetlights even, to be recognized. Local community members have talked with me about many sites they thought could be recognized because of age, past use, and stirring up current tourist interest. My thought was, what if we opened our doors to the community for their suggestions? They're already coming to me with them, so a committee at large to open it up. Perhaps we could ask through an article in the newspaper, requests via social media, etc. For instance, here's a few conversations with local folks, and then the ideas started really kind of popping with others. First discussion with someone was the chess club, pre-281. It was the ranch manager's home. Then it became home to many local families. It became home to teachers, groups of teachers living in there. It's been numerous businesses and currently is a restaurant, highly visited by tourists. Our Deutsche Bakery, which I was told was once a gas station, where our military, one of the stories was, our military personnel traveling from an Army base in San Antonio to another Army base near Dallas would always stop to get coffee and gas, and the owner would always make sure he'd be open so they were not disappointed.
That was my grandfather, and he had sandwiches and soft drinks and made sure those soldiers were fed on their way.
What a cool story. Thank you. I'm glad it's real. And then it became a bakery, I was told, because it had an apple orchard behind it. So why not make it a bakery? The last one was, they had a question if there was a post office a few miles out of town near Three Sisters in a small structure still standing on the west side of 281. It stands all by itself, and they had heard that was a post office for that area once upon a time. I don't know.
There was a post office there and 2 general stores and a mill, and that was a whole little community at one time.
Right on 281.
Right there, yeah.
What was it called?
It was coincident. It was just,
Okay.
coincident post office.
And that wasn't wasn't it?
Wouldn't that be a great place for a plaque?
That's what the county.
Are we doing,
We could work with that.
I mean, it brings
it's
people
not
to the city.
it's not county.
Okay, but I'm just saying, those kind of things can be noticed by us as a community. You have to be state and federal. But then I'd like to get back to the training, and it was regarding an equity component. At the very end of the training, they had a presentation with equity outreach that would add yet another layer of interest for our local folks as well as encourage tourism. For example, while driving and exploring, came across the state of Texas historical marker identifying the Peyton colony, primarily comprised of black slaves in 1865, and is, quote, remembered as the realization of the dreams of ex-slaves to establish a community of free people.
Like, still got a church out there.
There's still this is at the church. Okay. So that's part of our Blanco history. This was an historical event recognized by the state of Texas that I was not aware of, nor had I seen it in any of our tourism materials. The great thing about history is there are still the ability to have living history research. Meaning families and descendants are still available to share their part of the Blanco story. Billie Jean, you know all about that. Y'all know all
How
about
about the dinosaur tracks up the
that.
river?
Yeah, thank you. See, we'll start going. Then I realized I wanted to learn more about the cotton industry here in Blanco, as well as the dairy industry, the wool industry, the agricultural industries. The German ancestry is well recognized throughout our hill country, as well as other European cultures. But I wondered about bringing that diversity and equity component back in. What about our Native American tribes? Who were they? Where did they live? Where were their grounds? Early Mexican settlers, the workers in our farms and ranches, as well as our square, you know. Then I just said places we can go to research this. Once we found the information, where we could put it on the website, Facebook, maybe in a newspaper column, and then of course the placard. Such as Herb's Pet Shop has. We would need to research placard vendors, and that's what one of these parts in number 9 in new business refers to that. It was just placed in the wrong place. We'd have to research the vendors and their costs, and I would seriously recommend that we add QR codes to those placards, which they are doing in today's world, so that the individual can drive up, walk up, ride up, and just know immediately what that placard is about, in depth, not just what the placard says, but the in-depth history. So the bottom line is to research and update our historical districts, buildings, sites, structures, and objects from mid-century with a community-based committee with the intent of creating a new interest in today's community members. Our children and students, we can have them research their own local history, as well as encouraging tourism with more diverse interests. So that's my spiel.
That's wonderful.
That's
Thank
good.
you. Very
I
good.
think it was very good. A lot of the information that you're requesting is going to be in the portraits of Blanco. That I just gave Billie Jean, I mean, I was working on it, but I gave Billie
Yeah,
Jean this stick. Because I've got a lot of rock walls and I've got like the old Johnson house at the end of town. It was a gas station and a grocery store, that two-story, you know.
And I've gone downtown.
And then down here at the park where the office is, that was a cafe for the park at one time.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff on that stick.
And I've gone around town and documented all the rock fences and all the cisterns and all the wells. I think there's 3 I've missed, but I've got,
Counted the windmills.
yeah, and the windmills. I've documented all of that, photographed them all.
Excellent.
So I've got all of that together
If
too.
I can just get Billie Jean to put it all together.
Okay.
You know, because I've got tons of pictures, I've got tons of, documents, but it's just putting it all together.
Okay, I'll work on that.
And I don't have.
Yeah.
And it takes, and I know you've been working on this, I know it's already been in motion. But when the locals started coming, the newer folks to the town started asking me about the buildings that they're visiting every day, or the things they're driving past every day. And it just clicked in my head, you know, mid-century, we're not really representing the mid-century this way.
Or even what people were interested in
Or their
prior
interests.
to the mid-century. There may have been a different thing that
Exactly,
preservationists were interested in.
exactly,
Well, can I make a suggestion
absolutely.
on this? When I was working for the paper, we started working on local history, and then when I went over to Johnson City, that got dropped. What if we work on, and I would be willing to do that, maybe once a month or twice a month, have a story in the paper about a certain part of our history.
I mean, it'd be great.
You know, like say,
Wonderful.
Like mustard seeds.
yeah, kind of like mustard seeds. Because I did an article on the bowling alley.
Yeah.
And the history of the bowling alley when, back in
And
the day.
if you look in back issues, Maxine Blackburn,
Yeah.
my mom,
Yeah,
they would write stories about different places in the community.
yeah,
You know, like the, I mean, just.
and maybe have them republish some of those
Yeah.
stories.
So actually, that article could target, put links down the bottom.
Yeah,
So that people could get to it.
Yeah,
But I realized when I was talking with the local folks, they truly had an interest in newer things.
they did.
And that's, I think, maybe a part that we haven't touched on yet as a commission, is the more recent buildings that people identify with. And the ones that the tourists go to, I mean, the Deutsche Bakery, oh my gosh. I mean, how many hundreds of people in a weekend could read that placard?
Yeah.
Been drawn to our website,
Mhm.
share it with others, bring in tourism, all of those.
Well, the bakery, we lived in Arkansas for 24 years before we moved back, and I met a gentleman in a gas station, and he asked where we were from, and I said, Waco, and he says, I know where that's at, and he said, he was on a bus going from Fort Sam to Fort Hood,
Fort Sam, okay.
and they would stop at that gas station, and there would be a man there open anytime the bus stopped, and he would have sandwiches and chips and cookies and candy and coffee and Cokes and stuff. And he didn't charge them. He made sure those boys were taken care of, and he says, I never will forget that. He said that, and that was when 281 was a twisty, windy road.
Yeah.
And he said, that man never knew how much that meant to those
So
soldiers.
much honoring our veterans
Yeah.
and our military.
I mean, who'd have thought I'd meet somebody in Arkansas?
And that's a building today that is visited by, again, I keep thinking revenue, tourism.
Mhm.
They could read that story and how cool would that be?
Yeah.
So I've already had a couple of folks from the community say, I would be on that committee to research and to.
That'd be good to get the community.
Yeah, and then another person said, what if we take it to, I don't know, they do it in the schools now, perhaps you do, when they research the kids study their local neighborhood.
I don't know what curious specifically that they do.
So what a great project. If we could get that equity component in there, like the slaves and their part in our Blanco history. I don't see that represented, perhaps it is, but I haven't found it. I would love to see that be researched. And there is, from what Roxanne tells me, still perhaps family members still living here.
Yes.
That are exactly. I could get one history on it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But a good resource is the newspaper. If you go back, because I have spent hours at the newspaper going back through those old, you can find just tons of history.
Mountains of history. And I know we have booklets, and I know we have so much that's already been documented. What, I guess my question, and it's just a question to throw out there, I would not mind kind of having that, getting the community involved and the researching.
That would be great.
You know, I would go to maybe the service clubs and the churches and the schools and just say, give us what you got.
I have a lot of stuff on all the churches too, that's for that book too.
Good.
Yeah. And I've got a lot of stuff down at Twin Sisters. I mean, you'll have to look, I have to look at it in 6 months.
Have you met Linda Howard?
Yeah.
Okay, she is the chair of the county historical commission.
Mhm.
You need to meet her because she deals with the out there on the colony and all that. They do that. And so if it's outside of the city limits, it's a county. And you need to meet her. She does the museum. And get together with her. She'll have so much too, and she'll have input.
So if it's outside, that's a question I need to ask, I guess. If it's outside of our city limits, we don't have an interest in what.
I think that we have an interest.
You can have an interest, but
There's already
That's it.
They have the data on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly.
And it's under their
Nutritious. This is part of our history, it's part of our.
Right. Well, and the Chamber of Commerce pays and it manages some of our, like tourist and other historic memberships, that they pay a whole list of associations and memberships for us. So.
And networking with all of those,
Right,
big time.
right.
Judge Bray is the one that really got the county going again,
Yeah,
because
he
when it did die, and so Mondays over that.
All right. So if there any action we need to take right now, I've noted that Wendy is willing to head a committee on that if we can start a community history project or a living history project,
Yes.
including more diverse sites.
And not building any
Yeah,
more.
I'll be on it with you if that's okay.
Okay, oh yeah, and I'm gonna, I don't do it, I just wanna be the one that guides, or helps, or facilitates the community. Let them, and I'd love for you to be part of it.
Well, and that might be part of what can be added to the website that Commissioner Bunting was working on, that Alice is working on, because it is completely meant to be a collaborative effort on the part of the community. Just to know.
Well, can I add something to that I think would be interesting? It was a project that I've kind of been researching on my own, but I would be willing to throw it in with this. Put a little article in the paper and ask people to tell their own stories.
Yeah.
And then put it,
It's a great.
and then put it word for word like they wrote it in their own words.
That would be wonderful, because my mom, she would used to get like notebooks, and she would just write down stories. I had notebooks of stories, like when she was a kid growing up, picking cotton and
Oh, wow.
all this stuff.
But that would, bring the community in, because it would be like, well, they care about us and we can keep our history going.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest component of this whole idea,
Yeah.
is community involvement. The community is very diverse and getting more diverse all the time. It's a different generation of community than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So their interests are different, as Roxanne said, we have different interests. Let them tell us what they want to know.
Rudy, did you want to
Yeah.
make this?
I had talked to Billy and Joanne, because when I was doing the heavy extensive research about the cotton bin that was here in Blackmore, then I found those photos. Somehow it trickled into Oompa bands.
Yeah.
My grandpa was in an Oompa
Yeah.
band, in Oompa,
Yeah.
and he was Native American. Go figure. So go figure. So there's a huge organization, it starts like from the Johnson, Houston, this.
Coming this way, yeah.
Czechoslovakian, Polish, and German. And Hispanics too, but they have Oompa bands. And we got into a discussion, I'm gonna help Quincy to develop a poster for fundraising with all the different bands, and Linda started naming people, local people that are still alive. Then here on 7th and Mesquite, that was Mr. Coates' home, I believe. It's been a while, I think. They got married. They got married there, they went into Rome to take photo shoots, came back, and a minister, preacher lived there with them, and they had the Oompa band. And I told Joanne, all this Oompa stuff here, that the German culture place, I don't see anything. She said, let me see what you got, I'll send it some clippings. Fredericksburg has a lot of stuff, I have to go to the library. So I might include that for you if you want.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many layers of people and cultures that we can touch.
Yeah.
If we get out of our little box. I'm not condemning the box, but we just.
We need to, yeah.
Well, when you start looking at the history of Blanco County and you see the surveys, it was very diverse.
Yeah.
It wasn't just people from Tennessee or just Germans. It was
And most of them,
very diverse.
most of them in the 1800s and early 1900s were trilingual, they spoke Spanish, German, and English.
But then we've got a whole other 70 years after that
Exactly.
to look at and consider
Yeah.
who's been here. And, I've heard completely different versions of this town and what was going on in the square, depending on how old people were.
Exactly.
Depending on whether you were 17 in the 50s or the 70s or the 90s.
Yeah.
In the thirties, it was often, I'll tell
Oh,
you
yeah,
that.
it was in the 70s, oh, yeah.
So it's interesting stuff.
I'm glad it's stirred the pot, but, the biggest component I got out of that, and I really, to be honest, this is being recorded, huh? To be honest, from that training, the last component, I'm thinking, oh, really, here we go, diversity again. And the more she got into it, the more I realized I have not seen anything about the Native American tribes that lived here long before we did.
You can go arrowhead hunting here.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure you can.
Now, this is something that, it's on private property, so there's only so much that we would be able to do, but there are archaeological sites here and
And how exciting that would be for an archaeological student out of Texas State. or-
Well, the Lee's Ranch that I grew up on, it had Indian camps on it and a couple of burial grounds.
And who were the tribes? Who were the early
So it
tribes?
has a patch. Sure.
Okay, I haven't seen that identified. I mean, I see a lot about Indians.
there were Comanche battles out. I don't know if they were here, but they were out in north.
There's a lot of battles, but before we stepped into their world, what was it like? And who was here?
She needs that new book from that man that came,
Right,
Captain John,
James Scott.
well, about it.
I'm blind today.
But no, also the Native Americans who settled, San Marcos and the surrounding areas that probably are similar to who was here. They had enormous ranges.
And stuff around Canyon Lake.
Yeah.
Because they scraped it out.
Oh, they had dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Something I found out recently on one hill on our ranch at the very top was like a round hole that was rocked all the way around that went down like a cistern. And we never could figure out what that was used for. And a historian wrote a book about what between Twin Sisters and Spring Branch. And we were talking and she said, when the conquistadors came over like in the 1600s, the missionaries, they would set up on top of hills, outlooks. And that would be their cistern for water to water their animals. And they would well, in this case, the creek was, not far away. They would bring water up from the creek to fill that cistern. And they could see the whole valley from up there and see what was going on. And that's part of history I never knew.
And there was also, when we were kids, in the park, in the Blanco State Park, we used to call it Indian chair. You had to climb up the big mountain, and there's a rock chair. It's a flat rock with a thing, and we'd go up there and you could just see forever.
That's where they built the manager's house up there, didn't they?
It's further down, yeah, it's further down.
It's still there?
Well, last time I took Addie up there when she was about 4 or 5 years
I'm
old.
sure they didn't move.
So,
Sure.
I'm sure it's still there.
We need more.
It is, well, I'm fine, but it is 6:37.
And then just the time component would be networking with things that are already out there. We were at the, this is in Fredericksburg,
Texas Rangers.
I've got a whole thing on Texas Rangers right here.
so there you are. And then in their passport book, which you take around, and this is Texas Hill Country Trail Region. We should type in this as yet another networking resource, is the Blanco Courthouse. You are to go around and get this stamped, because it's on the trail. And then when you finish the book, you get this little gift, but, if we keep linking to all of these people, we keep touching new lives to come here.
Yeah, 'cause we have Texas Rangers over in the cemetery.
A lot.
They started Blanco.
In Civil War, yeah.
They founded Blanco.
And that's my 10 cents. Sorry to take so much time.
Are we okay to move on? I don't think we need to vote on anything regarding that right now, do we?
No, we do not. Well, we could vote on, may I make a motion that we establish chair votes? That would be Billie Jean and myself. to begin planning a community-based research for mid-century back to encourage, what happened to that?
No.
To encourage community interest.
I'm not writing it down verbatim.
That's okay. Community interest in tourism.
I second that motion.
All right. We need motions to establish, beginning a community-based research committee, which would be chaired by she and Billie Jean, to begin the community-based research for mid-century and newer, diverse, community research for tourism. And Collins has seconded that motion. All in favor? All right, motion passes unanimously. Okay, let's go to new business. We were supposed to approve the agenda and we are just gonna follow the agenda. We'll go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Paul's motion is to approve. I'll second. Wendy's seconds. All in favor? All right, motion passes. All right. Consideration of June 28th and August 9th special meeting minutes. You all have the
June 28th.
June 28th meetings from me, or minutes from me, and then we had the August 9th meeting, or minutes in the previous meeting, if I recall.
I think we approved those.
I think we did approve them. We had one or two changes, but we approved them with those edits. So this, we just need to get those over to the HPO for August 9th, and then for June 28th, we'll decide if we want to approve them or if we want to approve them with specific edits or what we want to do.
I want to make a motion to approve the June 28th minutes and presented.
All right, Holly motions to approve.
I second.
And Jean motions to second. All in favor? Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. Number 3, consideration and election of a new commissioner secretary or the commission secretary. Who wants to do that?
Does that have to be a member?
I don't know.
What do you,
Oh, terribly does.
Who wants to do it? Okay, well, do we have a motion to table?
I'm making a motion to table.
Hollis motions to table. Second? Wendy motions to second. All in favor of tabling? All right.
Sorry, Roxanne.
All right. Item number 4, fiscal year 22 grant application is Monday, November 1st, 2021 by 5 p.m. To qualify the buyer's building for the future recorded historic landmark. Well, so we should note here that there are 2 different grant applications going in. Do we have the rock wall in here?
That's been dropped.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that has been dropped.
That will go with streetscape when we have our streetscape plan.
Okay. Because I
That's about,
I will get the buyer's building stuff done if I can. But we're obviously looking at a significant difference in materials prices from when all of these costs were originally drawn up. We are looking at different, not just labor prices, but availability of labor. There are a lot of factors that we have to consider when we're when we write this grant request and, you know, part of it is just getting appropriate pricing, because Blanco pricing is not San Antonio pricing, is not Austin pricing, is not even New Braunfels pricing. And when we're bringing in, we've got to consider shipping costs. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, having been on the other side, the grantor for a lot of grants, it is absolutely not uncommon to do a change request if something comes in higher or lower or whatever. So
But
you can do that
are you talking about a change request with the grant amount?
with the grantor, just to say it's under or it's over. Because
Okay.
right now, I mean, I think the best you can do is just look at the consumer price index and say, we're guessing going with that if you don't have estimates. And I can help you with the consumer price index if you need help with that.
And also the inflation.
Yeah, well, that is consumer, that's what consumer, that's what
Percentage
CPI
to
is.
everything you have, it's just putting a percentage to it.
Yeah, so that's what your CPI is.
All right, we are going to, we'll just make that an informational item because I'm working on it and we'll see what we can get done in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, we maybe got some groundwork done for next year. So moving on to item number 5 is a discussion to meet in the month of December or not.
Okay, are we
Last December of the month,
We didn't meet because everybody's busy.
And we haven't in many years.
We used to, but then.
It's just too.
all right, so item number 5, would we like to make a motion to not meet in December?
Okay, we're still meeting in November on the 28th.
Is that,
After Thanksgiving,
that's
isn't it?
the Monday following Thanksgiving?
No, the 29th. Is there any way we could move that one up to the 22nd?
Before that? Everybody look at your calendars. We're looking at November. So our regular meeting in November, we're looking at both November and December because we're deciding whether or not we're going to meet in December based on whether or not we need to meet in November. So our regular meeting would be November 29th.
Yeah.
And we're talking about possibly moving that, but that's going to depend on the city's calendar as well.
According to the UDC, 2 times you have to meet the second, if there's a special meeting, and then the last Monday of the month. So
Okay.
and normally the special meeting is a COA, something like that urgent. And based on all the banners I see up there, I think we should be seeing COAs coming to it. And I think that's
Well, maybe if the COA comes through, then we could do a special meeting.
the following Monday.
But
If you have-
we don't have anything so far, though.
No, until we meet today.
Okay, well, on the 29th, I have to pick my grandson up at school at Randolph Air Force Base at 3:30. So I may be late if we decide on the 29th. I don't know if I can get here by 6 exactly, but I can get here.
But,
So Reedy's suggestion is that it would be the 8th, but I don't think we're going to have anything on the 8th.
that's too quick.
That's too
That's
quick.
too quick. I'm not doing it.
I'll figure out something.
All right, so with this item, and I will propose that we skip down to the COA review, item number 4 under HDR report, because I think that we have some informational items here and policies to leave. So I think that,
Okay, so we're gonna get December all together then?
yeah, well, we're deciding whether or not to skip December, but we need to move on to the COA approval or not, because we're going to these people. So,
Yeah, the voting.
so whether or not we skip December doesn't have to be contingent on whether or not we have a meeting in November.
We usually don't meet in December, we just don't.
Can I just make a motion if we don't meet in December?
I second.
So in the motions, no December meeting. And who seconded?
I didn't.
Okay, Melissa seconds. All in favor of not meeting in December?
I,
All right, that is unanimous. All right. So right now, we're in new business item number 6, but I would propose that we move down to HPO item number 4. Or no, number 3, item number 3, and then item number 4 under HPO report.
Okay,
Can we do
so
that?
the first one's a report. Everybody got that 2 or 3 times from me?
Yes.
Yes.
We're gonna meet. So the last one was September 22nd for Deborah Lee Cortez, a 4x6 metal attached sign to the existing post that the owner had there, 405 Main Street. It's a non-contributing building, it was built in 1987, not cutting this down. The applicant did turn in the COA appropriately, 4 pages. And the main thing that it has at the time, and she has a banner in it.
Yeah.
So that would be her permanent sign.
Yeah, well, I think they got into that. Now, we fell into a small glitch that I'm gonna say, since we did not meet, there's so many days that you have to approve.
45, right?
Oh, yeah, it's close to that, I think 45. Now, does that include weekdays, Saturday and Sundays? Apparently not holidays, but either way, I try to keep that in. So I went ahead and wrote to either Shelly or Laura, or Olga to go ahead and allow the banner. Couldn't wait no more. It was already up anyway, just so they could collect money. That's the only reason, but you fall into it. Okay, so HBO report, the Blanco Historic Preservation Commissioners or the city of Blanco should move to approve the metal attached sign. This is a 24 square feet. It should be bolted down to the existing metal post that is mounted on the front yard. The existing sign structure is at the setback, meaning minimum of 8 feet from the street right away. 24 versus 32, she's allowed 32. Just for repetition, very important. She has a lot of little posters there, little science facts. So you would take the sign 24 and that, and she should not supersede 32 square feet. Okay? If we had a sign administrator, I'm still looking for that. Then there's instructions for you guys there. Based on the rules of the city of Blanco, the commission of the Blanco Historic Preservation Commissioners, again, on the staff, should approve the certificate of appropriateness, which is this. Okay? As requested by the applicant, since it does conform to the fact findings 1 through 4. No, banners do not count toward total committed, definitely. I'm just bringing that to that. I've been like that all week. Sign areas, okay? So the historic district, fact finding number 1, she is in the district. Fact finding number 2, the design standards, the right of way, that's in the right of way. Fact finding number 3, cumulatively sign limitations. It's under the 32 square feet. Fact finding number 4, which talks about the location, its harmonious with the building, and overall historic characters of the district. So it's all in one. And then there's some more references. So that's basics. We've done this over and over, but each individual, it's unique. That's the report. Any questions?
I said, thank you, Rudy.
Oh, you're welcome. I can hear you.
Is the metal sign up or just?
No,
Not yet.
normally it takes weeks on us.
It would be in the same frame as the last
Yeah.
time that was there.
Now, once you guys approve it, normally, Roxanne next to the city, and then once it's approved, they pay for a permit.
Do we have any discussion about this particular sign? Does anybody have any issues with the report? I think first we'll approve the report if somebody would like to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, so Village G motions to approve the report. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all seconds. All in favor? All right, unanimous. Motion to approve the report passes. So. Item number 4, COA review and approval. So at this point, we'll be approving the sign to go ahead and forward to the city. Do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the COA for the HPO report.
All right, so Hollis Boatright motions to approve the COA for the HPO report. Wendy Cambridge seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, passes unanimously. All right, let's look through this agenda and make sure we're not missing anything that needs our attention to vote on, like now, so that we can make sure that we're not holding up anything.
Do we need to make any decisions on the banner?
Which one?
The color,
The color, I like the blue and gold.
I love that.
The blue and the gold.
It's so perfect.
John,
Yes.
Oh, gorgeous. Yeah.
that was a big expensive. Headache.
Really, it's so funny because it's actually Blanco's
No, I mean, the whole
colors.
start. I've been doing construction for 45 years, I've done nine brackets, and this was hard.
I like the first one, welcome to Blanco,
Yeah.
but it needs to be welcome to historical Blanco.
Well, it's in the phone.
Okay, so what we're working on is the HPO item number 2. Is that what we're working on, the damage report? Okay,
Okay, that's the lamp post, right? Number 2.
and those the lit post banners, and those that we're gonna take down the old ones. And Rudy has already put in a request with PEC to do that. And so then when these new banners are approved and come in, we'll go through the approval process to put them up during, is it May or?
That's really up to you guys.
But right now, we're just approving it.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just approving it.
Like I said, I asked for bids from about 60 companies between Austin and San Antonio. And I even asked Ink Design, she never responded. I don't know if y'all got this report from me. Y'all did, okay. So the average price for 8 banners, I think that's what it is, because they're all competitive. I told one girl, y'all were $1 off, do y'all talk to each other? She laughed about that. The average price for 8 banners is $2,165. From the last budget, we had the money. Now it goes into the new budget. And these are some of the more appropriate vendors that's in the pricing. And just like everything else, it's probably changed some. Okay, there's no telling. So at this point, y'all read the specs, and I have to come up with the specs. It's the royal blue, like the high school with the gold color. I send them to the website. And then it has a 2-inch pocket for the arms go into. Okay, 8 of them. We have brackets and hardware for 4 banners. And I kept repeating that to all of them, but they kept so many prices for 8. Then it's recommended different products. The last guy did it seemed like they were working themselves away from not wanting to make banners. They gave me 4 or 5 websites to run here. that it's probably better to go to those companies in order to advance. Okay, so the overall thing, what was the most productive of all this is that we nailed down the colors, the size, and an average price. Okay,
Have we nailed down the verbiage on the banners?
excuse me?
Have we nailed down what will be?
I don't know, I sent you all the photo. Did you
So we
get
need
it?
to do that?
Mhm. I think she.
Well, we like the color, so now you have to stick the size.
I like the first one. It's more,
But you want it to add historic.
welcome to historic, and I go somewhere in there.
Right, that's-
Yeah, welcome to an historic Blanco underneath.
Do you like the left or the right?
I like this, the one on the left.
Right.
Yeah.
To answer or question rather, the banner is already 30 by 80.
Yeah, I saw it. Right.
You could make it smaller?
Right.
I think we're.
I think I think everybody likes the banners
Yeah.
inside, and we just want to add historic Blanca underneath the courthouse on this banner.
Somebody say that, so we can.
All right, will somebody motion to, do we have a design number or how we can specifically reference that particular?
I love it.
The left.
One on the left.
Okay, approved. Left.
And you need this copy for your, I'll pull it out if you need it.
Send it to me, but, I mean, is that the?
This was one of Rudy's.
Right, no, I saw, I just don't know which one in the order, if it's got a specific title.
The first one, the one on the left.
Is it the very first one?
It's the very first one, yeah.
Okay, so this is a motion to approve the very first mock-up, but we would add historic. Welcome to historic Blanco. And
Underneath.
historic would be under.
Underneath, yeah.
Okay. So, historic
That's great font.
under.
Yeah, I like that. The old ones.
No, Roxanne. No, mind you guys, although I did this, and I was happy to do it for you guys, but at this point, maybe a committee would take over all these little small details. And if you have questions, I can help.
That might make it take a whole lot longer because we're making a decision right now.
you.
Why don't we just
Are
do
we
that?
not? Would you like to go ahead and?
We like the size, we like the
We love
color,
it.
we want to add a word, that's.
Yeah, oh, we just want to add one more.
Go ahead and do that, then. The only thing I need to do is get revised new numbers on it that's been hammered out.
And that's.
Well, maybe we can just separate that and then, put-
Not the calligraphy, but the other one.
yeah. I mean, maybe we can.
So what we would have here is a motion to approve the very first design and font with the edit that historic is added under the courthouse. And it will read, welcome to historic Blanco.
Yes.
So who would like to make that motion?
I'll make it.
All right, Regine motions. Who seconds?
I would like
Seconds.
to extend my conversation with this, not on the voting process,
Okay.
on the headaches that this creates.
Okay, well, we're gonna.
Okay,
all our-
and would you like to approve this? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, so that was item number 2 under HPO report. Correct? Okay. Would we like to go back to new business or,
Is there any more voting?
I
don't.
so there's nothing that requires. Does the gateway report require voting? All right, so let's go to HPO item number 1, which is the gateway report.
I'm just gonna say it off the top of my head, because it still is memory. So if you go to the point of the triangle, there's a post right there. If you take a measuring tape at it and follow the property fence, go 31 feet, there's already a small little sign there. The same triangle, the Lower Colorado Authority's utility lines go over. The lady had said, stay away 50 feet. Since it's not a square perpendicular, it's slanted, so it makes the wires come closer this way. Either way, if you take the closer wires to that sign, it's 50 feet. Okay? I met with Richard, the former commissioner out there. He's willing to do a lot of the work, no charge. He has the materials. Manny was the hardest person to find in the world, in the jail. I searched him on Instagram and I found him and I messaged him. He says, I am ready to start painting. Sorry, I don't answer your emails or anything. That's how busy he is. He's in demand in Austin. But he
Okay, so
said,
he's agreed and Richard's agreed.
yeah,
Well, which location are we talking about?
at the Peterson's Tire,
I thought that we had been told that that was either a PEC or textile issue.
I've already handled that. TxDOT had said as long as you stay in the fence property line, they're fine.
Is it behind the fence?
If inside the property, as long as you're inside the property, it's fine. Now, right at the post, there's a big old tree there that was never there before because I Googled maps. That tree's humongous. It belongs to the state, and but since it's lining the property to Charles Thompson's property, he said just cut it off. The other,
Cut the tree?
yeah, it's not, it's a hectare. It's a, and it's not even gonna put a sign there. It's blocking it 100%.
Yeah.
Just that
Yes.
Native Americans used to use hackberry
Oh, no,
berries.
no.
Okay, so we just got back from a road trip, to Arkansas. And every little town, smaller than us, bigger than us, same size as us, has the most beautiful stone or stucco monument exposed, not behind fences. I definitely would not approve, just letting this out now, behind the fence, number one.
Oh,
Yes.
can I?
That location is the first one that we ever wanted it to be in Blanco.
Was
And
there.
it goes back for years and years and years. That's it.
It needs to be exposed, it needs to be big and proud and welcoming.
Like 32 and 281.
Well, I'm not sure where, but I just know not behind the fence.
That's where the higher budget that I hope what's that pulled, because part of that, according to her left, was a capital, what was it called, capital improvements? But the budget went from this to down, so now you're with pennies, really.
But
And
we're
the
also,
city does.
this is also going to bring enhanced tourism. It's, why can't we tap into the Chamber of Commerce money, which is there to enhance tourism? We can tap into that. There's got to be local service groups that would love to see a welcome to Blanco and maybe even, be recognized for it and things like that. If we can't get it out of our own budget, then we need to go find the money to do it right.
But and I appreciate everything you said, you're doing good today. But my job is just to find where does the sign go, that's it. And find them, and I found them.
What about that Smitty?
And he's paid up. That one there became, you guys kind of said,
Well, I've been gone for a while.
Yeah.
Well, if we need to regroup.
because
I think you might have had a problem with the location at Smitty's Commercial Strip, which is when you're coming into town from Albert on 1623. People were expressing a concern about it because it wasn't the most prominent location. But we wanted 4 gateways. This was the one that was the surest one, where the property owner was completely willing to let us do it and willing to work with us, and there were no easements and there were no issues. So the one that we're talking about at Peterson's was the one that had issues, and that was one of the reasons that we were having a problem with it. Apart from that, we also had an issue with the materials and the quality of the sign, because what the chair or Commissioner Standifer Richard was working on was a plywood sign.
Yes.
And we were talking about a sign that was a completely different level of quality. And I mean, we can do nothing or we can do something nice. If we do just something with the original budget, we're gonna have a plywood sign and it's not gonna last that long. And if we do something more significant, it is gonna cost many thousands of dollars. But you know what? That state park sign was expensive. You don't just get a custom carved sign with a stone base for $2,000. That doesn't happen. And so there are two different issues here. One is locations, because we did have that location secure, and I think we still have that location secure in front of Michael Smith's office across the street from the high school. And we know that the Peterson's folks wouldn't allow us to do it. And Rudy says that he's done the groundwork to get that approved. But there are two separate issues there. And so,
So before I left, they were talking about Jason Wheeler's property up here.
He sold it.
He sold it?
Well, it's under contract.
Okay, and then his property out there
Yeah.
on 32,
Mhm.
that he was going to allow us to put it both places. Is that not true
I
anymore?
don't know about
are you talking about 32 and 281?
32, 281, and just 281.
Can I go ahead and recognize Kelly?
Yes.
I don't know, I've not looked into this at all, but I did look into the city that I came from, putting monument signs as entryways into TxDOT's right of way, right between State Highway 16 and the median. And I got permission from TxDOT, and this is a mock-up and drawing of it, but that went right in the median, in the middle.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't know why TxDOT allowed that on the State Highway 16, but they're not allowing it
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Maybe there's a good reason, but I'm just saying, I want permission to do it, so we may want to try.
That's been research.
Yeah.
We can assume Richard, I think
I
Richard.
don't know, I talked to him.
Did you?
Richard fought me the whole time. I have no clue why. He bickered about everything. I don't know what. That's on Richard, and it's what TxDOT said, Mike, he's out of Marble Falls. And he apologized for taking, everything takes forever, it took forever to respond. But they said, stay inside the property, there in 281. Either there's too many accidents, I didn't ask them. Then the next one was the lower Colorado, and they said, on those wires, stay with 50 feet.
Okay, but I'm just talking about on the north side, on the TxDOT right of way. Can we put it on the TxDOT right of way?
I know what you're saying, like in between
Yeah.
both the coming and going,
Yeah.
north and south, where the light is now.
Right.
There's that big wildflower.
Yeah.
Could we
Maybe
work with
yeah.
either Commissioner Weir or who's Commissioner for? Precinct?
Grandberg.
Grandberger. Can we see if they can?
Yeah, but it's still gonna be a TxDOT question.
It's gonna.
It is,
Yeah.
but they're better,
Oh,
they're
navigating.
better communicating with
That's
text.
true, they are, they're really good at that. And that's, I think it's a great idea.
So no one
If
really
you've
wants
done
to.
it before,
Yeah.
if you've done it before, could you contact them?
All I did is contact the TxDOT engineer that was in charge in that area, wrote a letter, and went through the process, and we got permission.
Would you do that for us?
I can write a letter, absolutely. I can go on my computer, I doubt.
Joe Mock out of Marble Falls.
Huh?
Joe Mock out of Marble Falls. And he's okay.
Okay, well,
Can you just send that to me?
We'll table this, I mean, it's up to us.
All right, okay, so regarding, HPO report, or HPO item number 1, we need,
To table it.
we have a motion to table because
More research for location.
Or
we need to,
Somebody needs to drive me out there and just make sure that I'm talking about we're talking about the same location.
Oh, yeah,
Y'all want it.
yeah, it's a perfect
Yeah,
location.
you do it.
Can you
I'll
tell
do
me?
it.
Yeah, don't stay south of the line on that divide.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There's so much land in there.
Yeah, that's right. I know.
all right, so do we have a motion to table this particular item, gateway report? All right, Lee,
I second.
motions, Haas, seconds, in favor of tabling.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Oh,
All those in favor? All those in favor?
aye, okay,
Any in favor?
In favor.
all right.
And what's that, that makes sense? because one thing that Charles was telling me around here, up on the road, as you're coming from 381 northbound, people are turning this way or going that way, some are coming this way.
That's it.
And so they're not gonna see that sign.
Yeah, they're worried
They're
about,
not gonna see
they're
that.
worried about dying.
Yeah,
There's that.
people don't stop at that stop sign.
Well, that new light, I mean, is wonderful things, like, you know, sitting there way longer than usual. However, they're backing, yeah, they're backing up like 20,
Yeah.
40 cars, and
Yeah.
they're all gonna see that sign.
And they're always a red light. It's never a green when you go through.
It's never.
I haven't been through it yet since the light's been working.
It's only been a couple weeks. So, oh, was it just been a week?
Yeah.
So I've been by there more than once.
Oh, it's been a long time.
I do. I leave my house. So I think that we should have voted to adjourn the meeting. Well, we do still have a quorum.
Yes.
Okay, you know what? All right. So can we go back to new business now?
Yeah.
All right, so we were on new business, item number 6. So. And that is choose a good day for a THC, Texas Historic Commission virtual meeting by Lorelei Willett, who is the community
Certified local.
certified local government
Something-
liaison
Yeah, something.
to discuss the grants being offered by THC within city, with city leadership and BHPC. So this is something that we need to coordinate with city council.
No, just you guys.
Well,
Who's leadership?
I mean, I'm not leadership, I don't vote on anything.
Her,
She's not
Well,
voting,
she's
she can
not.
steer things, but she's not voting on anything. If we're gonna,
but it's just a training because we're
so,
all behind the wall. There's no grant ridership, no what.
I just was wondering what you're talking about.
The state offered this for Blanco, I think they should take.
so this is a training item.
Yeah, that's all it is.
This is a
No
personalized training
decision.
item.
It's
All right.
Do we have to vote on this? Do we just choose to go?
What do you
I'm
mean?
not-
Hey,
Well, I don't know what your schedules look like.
yeah.
Do we all have to do it at the same time?
Someone.
They'll do it once live.
Oh, it's a one.
We've done it once before, with this might need to go into the new year.
Okay.
Does anybody, unless somebody,
Okay, this is gonna be off of our individual computers that we,
last time we did it in the
You
meeting.
can always come in here, we can do it off of that if you want, whatever you want.
okay.
Does it need to be part of one of our public meetings?
No,
Yeah, if you have a forum for training, yes, it needs to be out.
Okay. So, but it doesn't have to be part of a regular meeting.
No,
It
not at all.
can be, we can schedule
Special
a
meeting.
training on it, or a special training,
Uh-huh.
and it's not, it doesn't have to be on the second Monday of the month.
no,
Okay,
whatever you choose to do. Could be a Saturday, we've done it Saturdays here.
all right.
We did our workshop.
Saturday would be better for me,
That's
if
what-
we could do it here, because I'll have to
Yeah,
do
we
a
can.
laptop before I do the Zoom.
Do we want to go that deep as finding a date after the first of the year on a Saturday now, or do we want to look at the world a little bit?
Do we want to review this? Do we want to table it for now, for further review? Or do we want to look at a date right now?
I'm good with identifying a date.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Right now, I don't have anything in January, so.
All right, so we're looking at January and we're looking at Saturdays. All right,
Let's just move on.
what works for everybody?
What are we doing New Year's Day? No, I'm just.
I don't want to do the second either, so I would propose the 9th, 16th, or 23rd. But that's up to you all.
Sunday, 23rd, we could do.
The 22nd
Second,
on Saturday?
is that what you're thinking? Maxine?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was reading off Sundays, but yes.
22nd, all right.
Saturday,
Okay.
1/22, and hopefully we can do it here, but if not, maybe we can do it at the bank. So we'll look into that. So would anybody like to make a motion to tentatively schedule the historic commission training with our CLG liaison on January 22nd?
I'll make the motion.
All right.
What time?
We haven't decided that yet, but we have plenty of time to post it. All right, so Billie Jean motions to schedule that training for the 22nd of January. 2 seconds. Do we have a second?
Sure, second.
And these seconds. All in favor? All right, motion passes. All right. I have to leave at 7:30. I've got to pick up my daughter from LA, and it's dark. So,
7:19.
I know. But it's close, I can run. Yes. All right, so we just finished item number 6. We're moving on to item number 7. Form a key for the 2022 National Preservation Month.
So what does this entail?
Well, it depends on what we make of it. What do you think, Rudy?
Exactly. There's a whole long list. Were you here in Ball last night? Or we did,
I was in on all the meetings and
that's when
stuff.
all the banners went up.
Yeah,
I put
yeah.
those posters that were voted 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I did an awards thing for people doing.
Yeah, yeah.
what they're supposed to do. Yeah, you can there. But there's a lot of stuff you can do.
Okay.
Lawrence Coffee with the, like,
mhm,
he would like to participate. At one
Okay.
time, Janelle said we could do like a heritage at the
that's
courthouse.
kind of what I was thinking.
Every week you could have a little video to Facebook showing a particular building, which I was talking about.
Okay,
You just say from other towns what they do that's successful. And it's the whole month. And a lot of the business owners took part in that. Like I went to 0300, he had a menu, what you would have ate in 1855. I
oh,
don't know what else time it
That's
is.
so cool.
Yeah, it was neat, you know, he had food that you would eat back then, it would have been common.
I'll be on that committee.
Okay, you go, sure.
That would be fun.
You can run it.
I would like that.
And Linda has offered if we want to work out of the Pioneer House,
Okay,
maybe have an open house.
okay.
Yeah, that's nice.
And everything we were doing, Billy,
Mhm.
came out of $0.
Okay,
I bought the awards, I didn't have anybody first, I just did.
okay.
You get the ball rolling,
Yeah,
nothing ever happened here.
Yeah.
And it was simple, you don't have to have money.
no, you don't.
So for item number 7 under new business, we've had Billie Jean offer to be on or head.
It doesn't matter, however that needs to be done.
All right. Okay, yes. So Billie Jean is willing to head the planning committee for next May's preservation activities or National Preservation Month activities.
If I'm still involved, I'll back you up all the way.
Okay,
All right,
If I'm still involved.
so do we have a motion to form the committee with Billie Jean as the head? All right. Wendy, motion
I
to
second.
approve, Pam. Motions, or seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes. All right, so that was item number 7. Item number 8, road plaques for the Chisholm Trail Western Trail.
Okay. Someone brought this to my attention. Was it you, Greta?
No, it wasn't.
Who was it?
I misremembered.
Yeah, it went through Blanco, a portion. So it'd be super cool if we could put a little plaque somewhere, just a really modest little plaque that shows with the history, again, speaking with Wendy's other thoughts about putting plaques everywhere, or not everywhere, but in front of historic places. This would be super cool. I mean, Chisholm Trail, that's amazing. That it even came through Blanco, if we can prove that and get a plaque to put it. But at this time, I just think we should table that because there's a lot more research that needs to go into it.
So Pam, would you like to table that and do more research?
I make a motion to table the Chisholm Trail plaque
Project.
project.
All right, does anybody second that motion to table? Second. All right, Billy Jean seconds, motion to table. All right, all in favor of tabling that for now? Aye, all right, motion passes. All right. So item number 9 under new business, we just covered under item number 2 under old business. So we can very quickly, with or without me, go on to our informational items. Recap of the NAPC summer short course that was held August 24th through 25th. Gail and Pam were going to do that. Pam, do you have any notes on that you wanted to share with us?
I do have notes on it, but I did not bring them with me, but it was really interesting.
So
I'm just gonna take my word.
number 1, that's not an action item, we'll postpone that, if that's okay. I don't know if we need to vote on that because it's information. All right, postpone. Item number 2 is the recap of the NAPC camp training, which was the 26th through 27th of August. And Billie Jean and Wendy took that training. Do either of you have anything that you would like to share with us? All right, so Wendy, did you have, besides what you went over?
Yeah, I would just say it was well worth the time spent. I learned
A lot.
a lot.
All right, so we'll, for now, we'll go ahead and postpone any reports on that or work on, or go over those in the workshop. So item number 3 is the budget for next year, and I pitched it, I don't know what we got approved, I don't think it's, has it been approved? Yes, ma'am, Emily?
Your budget did get approved. What is your request?
It was 3,500.
It got
Well, I
approved.
requested more, but I requested at least 3,500.
Okay, it got approved. Okay.
Okay, all right, so number 3 was our budget. So we basically have an administrative budget. And we can order office supplies. Yay. Okay. Number 4, recap of the virtual training in TxDOT and THE, the Texas Historic Commission, which was October 20th. I know some of you took that. I was not one of them, one of those people. Did you take it? Anybody take it? Kelly,
I listened.
if we may, I have to leave, and you are all welcome to go over informational items and not take any action on anything.
We have adjourned the meeting.
Yes. Can we make a motion to adjourn this meeting? All right. Billie Jean, motions to adjourn. Any seconds? All in favor? Aye. All right, we'll adjourn.
And no voting on the recap for the Texas first. The number one thing that I learned, the section 106 is mind-boggling. I know Red always brings it up that we should know it, but they said it's not that important to you guys. We will handle it through the state. Section 106.
We do know it, and we're trained in it.
I mean, it sounds like a good
We're
idea.
trained in it.
Be real careful here because you're adjourned.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
I got a quorum still.
That's the-
Yeah.
that's the-
Open meeting for.
Nobody there? Nobody present?